All right, so I want to talk about pitchers conditioning. So I kind of have a bone to pick with the strength training community who loves to spout the idea that pitchers should only sprint. Basically, the argument, which is valid, not arguing against that, is that baseball is a power explosive sport. Therefore, when we train with things like distance running, we're training the wrong energy systems, and we're teaching our muscles to be slower and contract slower. So basically, if you're running long distance and you're a baseball player, like which was the historical traditional norm, we are training the wrong way. We're instead of hitting the ball harder, throwing faster, we're making ourselves slower. That's all sound science. I have no bone to pick with that. However, when you're starting to say that if you're a pitcher, you should never run distance, or, which I've heard from a number of reputable strength coaches, you should never run any distance farther than 60 yards or 100 yards. That's like not rooted in reality. So, not every strength coach, obviously, is going to, like, I train volleyball players, so I'm a pitching coach and strength coach by profession, among other things. I train volleyball players. I don't play volleyball. I never did, never will. So, I can still train them effectively. However, I don't pretend to understand their plight because I don't know it. I don't know what it's like to have three-hour volleyball practices like the girls that we train do. We're in a very serious club here in town. I don't know what it's like for their backs and knees and shoulders. I don't know how it feels at the end of a 3-hour practice. So for me to give them certain recommendations would be just overstepping my expertise. So some of it is theoretical, and this is the case with baseball pitchers. So any strength coach that says you should never run distance, or if you're running anything past 60 yards or 100 yards, you should only sprint, they're missing the point, and they probably have never done this themselves. Because let me tell you, when August hits, say it's pro baseball, or the end of the season in summer baseball for collegiate players, or just the end of the college season after 50 games in 75 days, your legs are awfully heavy. And I just know how I felt at game 121 on the season. It's early September, and my Achilles tendons are swollen. My legs are heavy. Do you really expect me to run sprints every single day as my conditioning, or 3 to 4 or 5 days a week? It's a lot of stress on the body. I don't know that sprinters do that. And it becomes an unreasonable activity. So for me, I used to take all this stuff to heart. I've been my own strength coach and pitching coach. I've lived in the strength training world a long time. I wanted to be the good old boy and only sprint. Now in college, I ran distance, I ran interval runs. I did a mix of everything, and my strength coach guided us through all that. And I had that same. I was reading all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't run distance again. Well, sprints for almost everyone in pro baseball become jogs. And so if you're saying you can't run distance, you should only run sprints. Most relievers only run sprints, but you know what a reliever's sprint looks like? Almost all of them run about 75% effort. So now you have guys who are running sprints at the same pace might run like a 5.5 or 6 minute mile, like a fast jog, and they're calling it a day. So now most of the relief pitcher world, and I can't vouch for all of it, but I've been around a lot of relief pitcher humans, and very few of them run legitimate sprints. So the word sprint means like all out, as fast as you can go. When you're jogging out a pop up, and your coach yells, "Don't jog, sprint!" Like you go as hard as you can, like a swarm of bees are chasing you. That's a sprint. So the standard for sprint, which is going to develop the power and energy systems, the explosiveness, all that we want for pitching, it's only going to be valid if we go 100%. Going a short distance hard jog or a short distance fast run doesn't do that. That's not the energy system. I could run 2 miles like that. I could run 2 miles at the speed most pitchers run their sprints in games. And look, this is because as human beings, it's really hard when it's 95 degrees out and it's 2:30 in the afternoon or 3:30 in the afternoon in August. It's game 109, and you want me to do only sprints yet again for the 100th day in a row. It's an unreasonable thing to ask all of us as pitchers. And so then you say, okay, most human beings will either run themselves into the ground, start having, like, I had ankle problems and like Achilles problems that I don't know why, but my last 3 or 4 years, like I consistently I ran juggernaut sprints in the outfield. When I sprinted. my Achilles tendons like got to the point where I would have to like take weeks off from running in pregame and do other stuff. I would contrast bath, or I would do some like really slow distance, or be on the bike sometimes, because I just like couldn't physically sprint. So when guys also get banged up, they really can't do that either. And remember, at the end of the day, you have to take the field. That's the only thing that matters in pro baseball. You don't get any trophies for having the best work ethic if you can't take the field. No one cares how many sprints you did earlier. If a guy did the best sprints in the world in pregame, gets shelled, other guy just drank some beer before pregame, this guy is still the champion. There's no trophy for this, like Kenny Power said. So I think it's an unreasonable expectation to say you can never run past 60 yards, which one of the biggest names in strength training for baseball was advocating for that. We're human beings, we're not robots. So that might make sense on paper. But, okay, so now I know that towards the end of the season when we're all tired, we're not going to go full out in sprints. And if you're not going to go full out in a sprint, why bother, right? I'm not going to run 60-yard runs. So if I'm not going to get any real legitimate conditioning, and I'm not going to get any sprinting in because short distances don't do anything, what should I be doing then? Are you saying that I shouldn't get some sort of workout in? Here's what I say. If you have the energy to sprint. It's unreasonable to ask us to do that all the time. When I don't have the energy to sprint, I would rather get something in than nothing, right? Is it sprint or nothing? I don't think that's the best way to do it. I would go run a mile and a half or a mile. It gets my heart rate up. It gives me something. It's better conditioning than doing nothing. I'm not going to get on like the Aerodyne bike and move my arms because that's going to exhaust me for pitching. I think biking is fine. I'm just like not my thing, but it's also conditioning, quote unquote, right? And so I think if we're not going to do sprints all the time, then what we need to do is find some balance where I'm going to go run a mile or 2 miles or 3 miles once a week. Is that going to ruin me as a pitcher? Am I going to go from 94 to 92? No, absolutely not. I'm going to do an interval run once in a while. Go run for 15 minutes. I'll run hard for a minute and jog for 2 minutes. Or I'll run hard for a minute and walk for 2 minutes. That's going to get me something conditioning-wise. Is that going to make my velocity go down? No. I could do 400-yard sprints. I could do full-on long poles. I could run gap to gap. I could do longer runs that are not sprints that still get my heart rate pounding. And there's just a lot of benefits in there. Sure, it might not be maximally explosive, but have you ever run a 400-yard, a loop around a full-size track? That was one of the hardest things I ever did in college. Absolutely book it. Run as hard as I could possibly run as fast as I could possibly run for a 400-meter sprint. Those are the hardest, worst things I'd ever done, I think. Because in that last 100 yards, you just start to just like get floppy and you start to lose your core and your body control. And I think that's where you become a better athlete, where you start to have to push through losing some of your body control. In the 10th, in the 7th inning, when you're your 105th pitch, you start to fatigue in your legs. Your mechanics start to drag. You start to lose what you had. Good athletes can make those little adjustments and right the ship, right? So I think there's value in some of those longer sprints that are teaching you to do that. I got to keep my running form together as I'm getting exhausted. You do a couple 400-yard sprints, are you saying that's not going to help prepare me to pitch well? It's going to prepare me in the sense that I'm going to have fresh legs in the 9th inning or in my 50th appearance in August. I'm not going to be out of shape. I'm not going to be winded when I sprint over the line to pick up a bunt and throw the guy out, because that happens. It's all those literal things. It's helping you control your heart rate in the game. There's benefits to that. As a reliever, when you only sprint and then you're only getting a little bit of work in, when you never get your heart rate up consistently, I would find that I'd have to run out for a ball or do something, get out of my little pitcher box, and I'd feel a little winded. And I never liked feeling like that. When in college, I never, ever felt that way, because I did a mix. I sprinted, I did interval runs, I did 200s and 400s. I did lots of different stuff. I had a cross-training mentality, and I was in phenomenal shape. Now, my velocity continued to trend upward, and I just don't think we can put a cap or lid or just put everyone in the same box that you should only sprint or only distance run. You shouldn't only sprint. It's going to break your body down. It's not reasonable for a long season that the high school, college, and especially pro guys are playing. And I've seen pro guys do it, almost all of them. Their sprints are pretty much hard jogs. So if we're going to hard jog, we might as well hard jog for longer periods of time so that we get something out of it. Get your heart rate up. and cross train. All right. So I don't know if you have questions, comments, if you feel like I'm an idiot, leave one and we'll talk about it.